Like I talked about last week, this coronavirus, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And you've been feeling that. We talked about it last week. In the last episode, you've been feeling that. I know you feel that. There's so much uncertainty right now. There's so much panic right now. There's so much fear right now. Like we talked about, schools are closing. Sports teams are closing down, canceling their seasons. There's a global pandemic going on. And it's been just insane. There have been death tolls in the thousands, this spreading and doubling every couple days. And I'm here to tell you that there's a way to get through it. And not just get through it, but do it with a smile. Do it moving your life forward. And if you don't do that, by the way, if you don't do this moving your life forward with a smile, that feeling of negativity that's been coming over you and your family, it's going to get worse. And I'm assuming that's not where you want it to be. You don't want that feeling of negativity to get worse. So I'm going to teach you how to break through that. My name is Brad Bizjack. I'm a mindset strategist and coach, international inspirational speaker, creator of a program called Appreciation Academy. And you're listening to the Path of Mindset Mastery today. And I want to thank you for being here because my hope is that this provides you with the tools and strategies that you need to make it through not just a global pandemic, that too, but the tools you need to get through any chaotic part of your life in the future. My goal of this podcast is to spread hope, to spread joy, and to eliminate the negative voices that will go on in your head during this time because they are very real. They're very real, and we have to stay emotionally centered. We have to get our mind back because right now, like I talked about last week, your spirit is being taken from you. And the world is going to a place of reactivity and negativity. And I'm telling you that there's a way to gain control back of your mind. And that if you do, this can be one of the proudest moments you've ever had in your personal growth. Last week in the last episode, I talked about where fear comes from. I talked about whatever you focus on, you will feel, whether it's real or not. I talked about positivity and how positivity isn't denying a problem. It's about having the right mindset to solve the problem and how to be emotionally centered and dealing with overwhelm and taking care of our energy and getting our brains back. And at the end, we talked about how we all need certainty during an uncertain time. We talked about how the world is feeling so much uncertainty right now, and it's going to get even more uncertain before it gets better. It will get more uncertain. And what we crave here, when we feel uncertainty, we feel fear. Fear and uncertainty are synonyms, right? But what we're going to give you today is a feeling of certainty. I'm going to give you 5-6 ways to find that certainty again. And that's so important because in my life, for example, I shared this story last week a little bit, I was feeling so negative. I was feeling so down. I was feeling so overwhelmed, and I just didn't feel like myself. I felt like, and you probably have felt the same way too. Over the last week, you've noticed all this stuff going on, and we've kind of abandoned the things that make us feel good. I noticed for me, I abandoned my morning routine. I was having wine 3 times a week instead of like my once every couple weeks or whatever it is. I was eating more crappy foods. I wasn't exercising nearly as much because gyms were closed. I was just feeling more down and more negative. And I was on the phone with my buddy Jim. And when I was on the phone with my buddy Jim, he said something very interesting to me. He said, Brad, you don't realize how much your rituals affect you until you stop doing them. And isn't that so true? You don't realize how much your rituals affect you until you stop doing them. And so one of the things that I realized in that, I was also walking the dog a couple days later, and I heard Jim Rohn saying, everything affects everything. Everything affects everything. What you consume affects how you feel. How you feel affects your relationship with your spouse. Your relationship with your spouse affects how you feel in your self-worth. That affects your business, everything. Everything affects everything. And we need to make sure to remember that. And so in that moment, I remembered that everything affects everything. And I started to check myself. I was like, wait, I'm not doing the things that make me feel good. I'm not doing the things that give me certainty. I used to think that certainty was something I would get from an outside force, but please understand, certainty is something you bring. Certainty is not a result of circumstance. Certainty is something you bring to circumstance. Well, the coronavirus is a very big circumstance, full of uncertainty. And if we're basing our certainty on what happens with that, are we going to find it? No. We need to bring certainty to it. We need to bring certainty to it. And like I talked about in the last episode, there's negative, neutral, and positive ways to meet a need for certainty, right? We all need certainty. What's a negative way to meet that need? I talked about it last week. It's watching the news. That'd be a very negative way to meet your need for certainty right now. And what does that do? Because think about how it doesn't actually give you true certainty. Because when you watch the news, do you actually control what happens in the world? No, you don't control what happens in the world. And does watching the news change or affect the way that you are handling this situation with your family? No. You're going to handle it the same way you've been handling it either way. While there is a pandemic around, you're going to keep yourself locked up. At least I hope you're keeping yourself locked up. Smart thing to do. You're keeping yourself locked up. You're keeping yourself quarantined. It's a smart thing to do. So let's assume you're doing that either way. Does watching the news do anything for you? No, it programs your mind with negativity. Because what is the news programmed to do? By the way, if you want facts, check out the World Health Organization. Check out the CDC. Those are facts. The news is sharing only negative. Only negative. Because their job is to get people to pay attention. There's no problem with that. They have every right to do that. But their job is to get some people to pay attention. And because as human beings, everything we do is driven by our need to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. Which of those two are we more motivated by? Avoiding pain. Because think about it. Would you rather do more to save $20,000 or to protect $20,000 from getting stolen from you? You do more to protect $20,000 from getting stolen from you. We want to avoid pain at all costs. And so the media knows this very well. And so they will say things that trigger that pain, that reptilian brain that we talked about last week. They'll trigger those things. And that's the media's job. And while some of it is true and real, it is true that there's this many deaths. It is true that these people have been quarantined. It is true that these NBA teams have been shut down. Does that show any of the beauty that's happening in the world right now? Does that show any of the amazing things where the world is coming together to find a solution? Does that show any of the things that people are doing for others? No. It only floods your mind with negativity. So, and it gives you a false illusion of control. Because people think that if they know what's going on, they actually have certainty. But is that actually true? Does you knowing negative news headlines actually affect the way that you're going to change your strategy during this tough time? No. So there's ways to meet our need for certainty that are more beneficial. Because if I'm just guessing right now, at least in my life, what I needed last week, or the week before, was certainty. I needed certainty in my life. I needed a way to feel better. And I wasn't doing it the right way. And so I'd like to give you what I had to check and what I had to do to find that need for certainty in my life again. And this is a game changer. If you use this and you find certainty during an uncertain time in a positive way, you will feel so much better. So let's start with number one. The number one way to find, and I kind of touched on this already, the number one way to find certainty during an uncertain time is really, really simple. Look at history instead of headlines. Look at history instead of headlines. What does that mean? Because what do the headlines make it seem? It makes it seem like the end of the world is here. It makes it seem like the apocalypse. It makes it seem like zombies are taking over, right? How many of you guys got the zombie feeling over this last week? Like people are fighting over toilet paper. Like there's all this shit going on it's just really, really negative. And so headlines will make you feel so uncertain. You feel like you're getting a sense of certainty because you know what's going on, but doesn't it just make you feel more negative and more uncertain? Absolutely. So my challenge to you is to realize that this has happened before. This has happened many times before in different ways. Have global tragedies happened before? Abso-freaking-lutely they have. If you take a look at history, the AIDS, HIV, Ebola, SARS, MERS, all that stuff, even beyond just pandemics, and you look at 9/11. During 9/11, didn't people think the world was coming to a fucking end? They thought it was ending during the 2008 financial crisis. Didn't people feel like the world was coming to an end? Absolutely. And because I am such a student of history, I'm such a student of the world's top leaders, the people that, and by leaders I don't mean in political positions. What I mean is people that are leaders in terms of how they feel and think and succeed. I study them so much and I realize something, that if you take a look at history and you realize that all of life is cycles and trends. All of life is cycles and trends. Because I want you to think about life like the changing seasons. And by the way, can you change the changing seasons? No, you accept them. Because in springtime, that's when you plant. That's when you plant your seeds. That's where when opportunity happens. It's rebirth. It's a time of go for it. It's a time of opportunity. It's where you plant your seeds. And then if you haven't planted seeds, you're going to be begging in the fall. We know this. This is logical. But if you plant your seeds, then amazing. You're going to have a harvest in the fall if you move to summer. Because what happens after spring all the time? Summer always happens. Summer is always after spring. And in the summertime, what happens? It's hot and the pests try to attack your plants, don't they? The pests try to attack your plants, your crops, and they try to eat them and bring them down because, write this down, all good will be attacked. All good will be attacked. And so if you do a really great job protecting your crops all summer, then you get to have, then what happens after summer, by the way? Fall, harvest time. If you protect your crops all summer long, then you get to harvest your plants. That's what happens. You get to harvest your plants. And in the fall, you need to learn how to reap in the fall without complaint, meaning that if you don't have a harvest, it's because you didn't plant in the spring or didn't protect your crops all summer. And you need to learn how to reap in the fall without apology. What that means is, meaning celebrate your yield if you have a really good yield. If you're getting results, amazing, fantastic. And this will relate to the coronavirus in a second. But if you're getting a good yield, celebrate it because it means you planted in the spring and it means that you protected your crops all summer long. That's what it means if you get a good yield in the fall. Fantastic. Well, guess what? The last 12 years have been spring, 2009, 2010, springtime. Summer wasn't very long because it was so easy to make money, to build a business, to have good things going on over the last 12 years. So easy to be an entrepreneur. One of the easiest times in history to be an entrepreneur, to build a business, to make more money, etc. So we had the greatest harvest we have had in human history over the last 12 years. But question, what always happens after fall? No matter what always happens after fall? Winter. Winter always happens. Guess what? Welcome to winter. It's just how it goes. It's just how history has always panned out. After business expansion comes what? Recession. After day comes night. After fall comes winter. I wouldn't worry about why that is. It just freaking happens. You can go and rip January and February out of your calendar if you want. That's an option, but it doesn't change the fact that it's going to be cold outside for a while. But here's what's so cool. How you think in winter determines how long it'll be until your spring comes. My spring's already here. My spring is already here. My challenge for you is to make your winter last a little bit less time. Because right now the world is in winter. And in winter, what do people do? In winter, some people, they wait it out. They hide. They freak out, and they don't like the fact that it's so cold. And you're like, well, why don't I just move to Florida? No, I'm just kidding. But they freak out that it's so cold. And they're panicked, and they're worried, and they're wondering, is my business ever going to grow? What does this mean for my kids? What does this mean for my family? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Right? That's what people are doing. And I'm asking you if that's what you're doing right now. That's one way to handle it. Absolutely. But what do some other people do in the wintertime? They go skiing. They go snowboarding. So write this down. How you think in winter determines how long your winter will be. Because as we'll talk about in a couple podcast episodes from now, this is the greatest opportunity you have ever had. And we'll talk about that in a couple more episodes, so stay tuned for that. But it's so true. It's the greatest opportunity you've ever had, and you're able to do it with integrity. I'll teach you how to do it. But we need to realize that how we think in winter determines how long it's going to be until springtime comes. And so my whole point in bringing this up is that a pandemic, global uncertainty, in some way, shape, or form, it has happened before, and we have always prevailed. Throughout all of history, all of time, we have always prevailed. So if you want to feel more certainty during this time, look at history instead of headlines. Because if you're looking at headlines, think about what it does to your money. What are you doing in terms of headlines right now? When the stock market, we lost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars the other day. It was insane. And from that, if I am following headlines, I'm thinking pull my money out of the market while it's still at least somewhat decent, and save it, keep it in a savings account. That's what most people will think. But if I take a look at history, it makes sense to put more money into the market right now. And so my point is, and that's just one example, but if you look at history instead of headlines, you will realize that A, we have always gotten through this and always will. B, this has happened before. And C, the human race is pretty amazing when they have to come together, aren't they? When the human race has to come together, they're pretty freaking amazing. That's what's happening right now. So to find more certainty in an uncertain situation, look at history instead of headlines, and you will feel more certainty on a moment's notice. That's a positive way to feel certainty in an uncertain situation. Second thing, let's move on to number 2. What's the second thing that you can do to find more certainty right now? Check your consumption and routines. Like I mentioned to you at the beginning of this episode, you don't realize how much you value your routines until you stop doing them. It's so important that you take a look at, okay, what am I actually consuming right now? I want you to take a look at, on a scale of 1 to 10. Scale of 1 to 10, if you're taking a look at, okay, what all of my consumption time, my personal growth and development, my news media, my social media, of all the things that you are consuming, if you're being totally honest with yourself, what percentage of just your consumption time is taken up by news and social media? If you're being totally honest, what percentage of your consumption time is taken up by news and social media? What percentage is taken up by things that will make you feel great? Be honest. Because if that number is less than 80%, if let's say that 80% of your time, let's go with 50. If more than 50%, I would guess, of your consumption time is actually less than that. If you are consuming mostly negativity, is what I'm trying to get to. You just found out why you feel like shit. You just found out why you feel like shit. If what you're consuming is mostly negative, you just found out why you feel like shit. You need to consume positive material. So here's what I did. When I was feeling negative last week or the week before, I took a look at, okay, if this is what I'm feeling, what do I do and what are my routines and what do I consume when I feel the best? When I am the best version of myself, what do I consume? And what do I do? What are my routines? What are my habits? And so I made a list of all my routines and habits when I'm the best version of myself, the absolute best. Okay, my gratitude practice, flooding my mind with personal growth, my exercise, my nutrition, my meditation, sending love to people, flooding my mind with the world's inspirational people, getting around people that are playing ball at a high level. When I am at my best, I'm doing those things. And so I went through and I gave myself a rating. When I was feeling like crap, I gave myself a rating. And I asked myself, where was I actually at? And all of them were less than 5 out of 10. All of them were less than 5 out of 10. I was like, no wonder I feel like crap. Because my buddy said, you don't realize how much your rituals impact you until you stop doing them. It's so true. Have you ever eaten healthy and you feel really good? And then you take a day off of eating healthy and it doesn't really bug you that much, but if you go a week eating like crap, what do you feel? You feel negative. You feel down. You feel fat. You feel sluggish. And so you feel like the same thing here. If you are feeding your mind garbage, of course you feel like garbage. Your brain and your mind are what your brain and your mind are fed, just like your body. So my challenge to you is get that morning routine back. Get that positive consumption of this stuff back. You gotta make sure and consume positive material and take a look at a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you getting your consumption from? Like, is it negative or is it positive? Be totally honest with yourself. If I scroll social media right now, which I refuse to do, it's negative, 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 negative. That's all it is. And so if that's what I see, that's what I will feel. Stand guard at the gates of your mind or weeds grow automatically. That is a Jim Rohn quote. Stand guard at the gates of your mind or weeds will grow automatically. Meaning it's natural for us to feel like crap unless we protect our mind. You have to protect your mind right now more than ever. And if you actually want factual information on what's going on in the world, follow the World Health Organization. Follow the CDC. Those are actual organizations that will give you real information. Don't follow the news. That'll just make you feel like total garbage every day. Even if some of their stuff is true. And a lot of it right now is true. This person died. 2 more cases here, 5 more cases here, right? They're looking for things to get your attention. So just realize, check your consumption routines and get back to who you really are. Ask yourself, who am I when I'm at my best? And what are my rituals when I am at my best? And get back to that. You absolutely must get back to those rituals because your life is a reflection of your rituals. That's number 2. Number 3, what is the meaning you are giving to this? And what I mean by that, number 3, is change the meaning. So, your life is made, you've heard me say this before, your life is made up of events and the meaning you give to each event. Let's say that I open the door for my wife, and she's so grateful that I opened the door. Why? Why is she grateful that I opened the door? Is it because I opened the door, or is it because of her interpretation of what that gesture means? It's her interpretation of the gesture, because I could open the door for Janice, and she's all pissed off, thinking, I get to myself, you pig, I don't need you, right? She'd never do that. She's a lovely woman. But did the event ever change? No, I still opened the door for her. She changed her interpretation of the event. Well, the event here is not opening the door for someone. The event here is coronavirus. Or if you're watching this or listening to this episode a year from the time of this recording, maybe it's another bit of chaos in your life. But the event at this time, the time of this filming, is coronavirus. Okay, so I'm opening the door. Coronavirus is opening the door. What is the meaning you are giving this event? Are you choosing to make this mean that the world is ending? Are you choosing to make it mean that people are mean for hoarding toilet paper? Are you taking this to mean that the world isn't a safe place? Are you taking this to mean that your kids are going to die, that your grandparents are going to die? What are you taking this to mean right now? What is the disempowering meaning you are giving to the situation? Because I guarantee you, everyone, myself included, my meaning was that my business is going to epically fail because people aren't interested in changing their mindset right now. That's what I felt. I felt that last week, and I was like, wait, that is so stupid. People need mindset changes more than ever. But what's the meaning you're giving it? If you're being totally honest with yourself, you can pause me right now and ask yourself, what's the meaning I'm actually giving this situation right now? And check that. Is that meaning empowering you? Is that meaning empowering you to be a role model, empowering you to change your family's future, empowering you to be the best version of yourself? Is that meaning actually helping you? And if you were to choose a more empowering meaning, what would that meaning be? People ask me all the time, what should it be? What should my meaning to this negative event be? You get to make it up. You're already making it up. You get to make up whatever you want it to mean. Whatever you want this to mean, you get to make it up. So it could mean that it's an opportunity for you to come closer to your family. It's an opportunity for the world to come together. It's an opportunity for me to share love and hope and joy. You get to pick the meaning of what you're going through. No one else gets to decide that besides you. So what is the meaning you are giving to this virus right now? What's the meaning? Are you making it mean that the world is ending and that your family's not safe? Or are you making it mean that it's an opportunity to stay safe and to be fully present with the people you love most? Is it a meaning that you never want to take for granted your relationships ever again? Is it a meaning that you want to feel fully alive? It's a meaning that you want to make sure and protect your mind. Is it a meaning that you want to become a role model and example for people? What's the meaning you're going to choose to give it? My challenge to you would be to choose a meaning that leads you to a better life. And when you choose a meaning that leads to a better life, you lead us to number 4, which is faith or fear. Faith or fear. It is so easy to feel fear right now. And I don't blame you. I don't judge you if you feel fear. That's normal. This is a very fearful, scary, uncertain situation. But if you want to find certainty in an uncertain situation, you got to have faith. It's so easy to have faith when things are going your way. Over the last 12 years, when the economy was going, the biggest bull market we've ever had, it's been so fantastic. It's been so easy to feel faith during that time. It's easy to be happy when things are going our way, but how we think when we're down determines how long it's going to be until we get back up. So, are you choosing to have faith that you're being guided right now? Or did you let go of your faith and choose fear? Faith and fear can't exist simultaneously. It's one or the other, guys. One or the other. So my challenge to you would be to trust that there's a bigger reason for this. Whatever power you subscribe to, God, the universe, whatever it is, just ask yourself, if I was truly being guided, which I believe you are, doesn't it kind of take some of that pressure off your back? If you don't try to control this as much, you do your part, you make informed, smart, faith-based decisions, but you just have some faith that it's going to work out, that always has worked out in the past, it always will work out. And isn't that true for you in your life? Hasn't it always worked out? It's always worked out. It's always panned out in some way, shape, or form. So my challenge to you today would be to adopt a belief that life is always happening for you and not to you. And if you can adopt that belief right now, that life is always happening for you and not to you, and you start to find the gift in the pain, then all of a sudden your life is very, very different very quickly. You find certainty because you bring certainty to the situation. Isn't having faith another form of certainty? Of course it is. It's another form of certainty. When you choose to have faith that it's working out or always going to work out or always has worked out, always will work out, that brings you calm certainty. It brings you a feeling of peace during an uncertain time. Why do you think people pray? Right? Like and by the way, praying isn't saying I'll feel better when my wishes are granted. It's not saying I'll feel better when help comes. Praying is, I trust that help is already here. I'm already being guided. I just got to find the more empowering meaning to it. So my challenge to you would be just to trust, just to have faith that it's always worked out. It always will work out. You just need to see it that way. And when you do, it feels so much easier to live with a smile on your face. It comes so much easier to relax and find peace during this challenging time. So that's number 4. Find faith instead of fear. When you do, you'll find certainty during an uncertain time. And it leads us right into our last one, number 5. And that's gratitude. Please put this in your notes. It is impossible to feel fear when you're deeply grateful. Ask yourself, when you've been feeling this panic over the last week, have you ever paused over the last week and actually felt grateful for something? In that panic time, have you felt actually grateful? And if the answer is no, you just found out why you feel crappy. It's impossible for fear and gratitude to exist simultaneously. Gratitude is the antidote to fear. Well, if you've been feeling fear, check your gratitude. Have you taken a moment to appreciate beautiful memories from your life? Have you taken a moment to appreciate this time with your kids, watching them grow up? Have you taken time to be grateful that the powers that be are finding a solution to this? Have you taken time to be grateful for your own health? Take time to be grateful. Because when you feel gratitude, and you feel it in your heart, not just writing shit down in a journal to feel better. That's not actually gratitude. But when you actually feel gratitude in your heart, and you just feel the appreciation of past moments, present moments, and future moments, and you actually feel the appreciation, genuine appreciation, fear cannot exist. It is impossible for gratitude and fear to exist simultaneously. So if the coronavirus is scaring you, it's time to be grateful. What are you grateful for right now during this chaos? And that will make that chaotic feeling disappear. It will make it go away instantly. And you will feel back to yourself, because being grateful, aligned with something bigger than yourself, being appreciative, that's who you really are. That's the version of you that can solve any problem. That's the version of you that can make smart decisions, stay inside, don't be dumb, but actually allows you to realign with your true purpose, your true calling, who you truly are at your core. That's who you really are. When you follow these 5 tips, when you look at history instead of headlines, when you check your consumption and routines and flood it with inspirational things and the routines that you have when you're feeling your best, and you change the meaning to something empowering, and you find faith instead of fear, and you choose to have gratitude, all of a sudden uncertainty disappears, and you find all the certainty you need. And none of that had anything to do with what was going on CNN or Fox News or whatever your Medium channel was. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with you taking control back of your mindset, being proactive instead of reactive. The world is in reaction right now. But I'm telling you that if you become proactive, you can feel happiness during this uncertain time, because your happiness was never canceled. Your happiness was never canceled. Schools were, NBA was, all this crap was, NCAA basketball was, March Madness was, all that stuff. That was canceled. Your happiness was never canceled. You get to choose if you feel happy on a regular basis. That's 100% up to you. And it comes from what you flood your mind with and how proactive you are on feeling good. Feeling good is not a natural byproduct of the mind. The mind's job is to make sure you live in fear. You need to rewire it. You need to rewire it to find the gift here. No judgment to you whatsoever if you've been feeling fear. It's normal. It's normal. My goal here is to guide you to find your way back to who you truly are, to guide your way back to the true version of yourself. And when you do that, you can start to be a role model. You can start to be a leader during this time. And when you're a leader during this time, you change your kids' lives. You change your business's future. You change the people that follow you. You help them so much. And in next week's short episode, we're going to talk about leadership during this time. We're going to talk about how to lead during chaos, how to lead and be a role model this time. And ask yourself, what are the actual feelings I want to instill in people, and am I living those right now? Because in order to lead, you have to go first. Leaders go first. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. So thank you so much for tuning into the Path to Mindset Mastery today. Share this episode. There's no call to action, no webinar coming from this. Just get this in front of more people. People need this now more than ever before. More than ever before. And I challenge you to share this chaos episode with people today and the one before it and the coming ones over the next couple of weeks. My name is Brad Bizjack. Thank you so much for tuning into the Path to Mindset Mastery today. Go out there today and every day and live your life with a genuine smile on your face. When you proactively flood your mind with certainty, and remember to bring certainty to an uncertain situation, it's very easy to do that. I'll see you in the next episode.